Prologue, the Hollow Throne. The marshes breathe in whispers, their fog curling like spectral fingers around forgotten ruins. The Black Mire, once a sanctuary for exiled mystics, now swallows the bones of the fallen. At its heart, a palace of drowned stone looms, a fortress lost to time, reclaimed by the will of one woman. Lysandra Voss, the last heir of Caeldraven's shattered empire, stands atop the wraith spire. The scent of wet earth and old blood clings to her. The Syndicate's ritual in the crater of Mos had failed. The Obsidian Chord lay in fragments, and Ilmaris, the shadowed echo of gods long dead, had slipped from her grasp. The cycle had broken. But a new one would rise. Her fingers brush against the blackened relic at her belt, the last shard of the cord. It pulses with an ember of stolen divinity. She can still hear the phoenix's cry in her veins, the final wail of Etherion's demise. Power like that does not vanish. It lingers, waiting for a vessel. And she would become it. Chapter 1, The Weeping Mire. The Black Mire is a labyrinth of shifting paths, where will-o'-the-wisps guide fools to watery graves. Lysandra moves through it like a phantom, her presence an extension of the mist itself. Her followers, remnants of the Syndicate who survived the battle at Val, kneel before her in the drowned chapel of St. Vale. A voice rises from the shadows, Gideon Hollow, a scholar of forbidden lore. The chord's fragments are not lost, he murmurs. They are merely waiting. Lysandra's golden mask tilts. And where do they wait? Gideon places a hand on the chapel's altar, where a map of veins and ink unfurls, a living thing, pulsing with the knowledge of dead gods. Beneath the drowned catacombs of Ilmaris. The veil is thinnest there. Etherion's last breath still lingers. Lysandra smiles. Then we begin again. Chapter 2, The Tomb of Echoes. The ruins of Ilmaris are half buried in brackish water, the skeletal remains of a city that once knelt at the feet of gods. Lysandra and her hunters tread carefully, their torches cutting through the gloom. The catacombs pulse with something ancient, something awake. They are not alone. A chorus of whispers slithers from the dark, voices of long-dead priests who once guarded the relics of the celestial order. Their forms are twisted shadows, bound to the will of the veil. The chord is silent, they chant. But its song remains. Lysandra draws her blade, its edge glistening with oils of the Black Mire. Then let us hear the melody. Chapter 3, The Price of Resurrection. The shard is embedded in the heart of the tomb, pulsing like a dying star. Lysandra steps forward, feeling the weight of the past coiling around her. The relic hums, the echoes of its former power calling to her blood. But something is wrong. Gideon recoils as the walls pulse, living flesh where there should be only stone. The shadows twist, and from them, something emerges. A figure, wrapped in the remnants of celestial fire, its form cracked and seething. Ilmaris. You cannot steal what belongs to gods, he rasps. You cannot remake the cycle. Lysandra stands firm, her fingers tightening around the relic. Then I will forge a new one. The battle begins. Chapter 4, The Wrath of Forgotten Gods. Ilmaris moves like smoke, his body shifting between existence and oblivion. His attacks are not physical, they are raw entropy, the unraveling of reality itself. Lysandra dodges, but the tomb is collapsing, the past screaming through its breaking walls. Her followers fall. Gideon is ripped apart by forces unseen, his body dissolving into the veil. Lysandra snarls, pressing the shard against her palm, letting its fractured power sink into her flesh. The pain is excruciating. But pain is temporary. Power is eternal. The marshes answer her call. Roots burst from the catacomb floor, ancient vines lashing out like serpents. The water rises, thick and churning, pulling Ilmaris down. For the first time, the godling falters. Lysandra strikes, her blade singing. Chapter 5, The Lady of the Mire. The battle is over, but the world is changed. Lysandra Voss emerges from the ruins of Ilmaris, the shard of the cord fused to her skin. The marshes hum with new life, twisted and blooming in unnatural ways. She is no longer just the heir of Caeldraven. She is something more. Word spreads. The Black Mire shifts, its fog thickening, its whispers growing louder. The exiled, the lost, the forsaken, they begin to gather, drawn by the pull of something greater than themselves. Lysandra watches from her throne of roots and stone, her golden mask gleaming through the mist. The gods have abandoned this world. But she remains. And the cycle will turn again. Chapter 6, The Unraveling Veil. The Black Mire breathes in silence, its mists thicker than ever, curling in ephemeral tendrils around the skeletal remains of drowned trees. Lysandra Voss stands atop the crumbled spire of Ilmaris, her golden mask catching the wan light of the fractured moon. Below her, the marsh churns, restless, as though sensing the shift in fate. The chord's fragment, fused into her very flesh, pulses in time with the heartbeat of something ancient, something waiting. The air tastes of ozone and decay, as if the heavens themselves rot beneath unseen wounds. A whisper, no, a presence, presses against the veil. Evangeline arrives, emerging from the mist like an ember refusing to die. Her hair, a wild inferno in the gloom, flickers as she steps onto the cracked stones of the forgotten ruin. "You've done it," she murmurs. "You've unmoored the cycle." Lysandra tilts her head, her fingers tightening around the hilt of her obsidian blade. And yet it turns. Evangeline shakes her head. "Not as it should. You feel it, don't you? The fray at the edges. The veil isn't just thin, it's unraveling." A gust of wind howls through the ruins, carrying with it the scent of distant storms and something darker, something ancient clawing its way back into existence. Lysandra smiles. "Then let it unravel." Chapter 7, The Dirge of Hollow Gods. The exiled priests of St. Vale gather in the drowning temple, their faces obscured by bone-white veils, their hands steeped in the blood of prophecy. They chant in a forgotten tongue, their voices weaving a dirge that slithers through the waterlogged corridors of the temple, echoing off the vaulted ceilings like the lament of a dying world. Lysandra strides through the shallow water, the mire lapping at her boots. The golden mask conceals the fury in her eyes, but her movements betray it, measured, deliberate, deadly. "The old gods are waking," intones the high priest, his voice thick with reverence and fear. "And they are hungry." She does not answer. She already knows. The Black Mire pulses beneath her feet. The trees groan, their gnarled limbs bending in supplication. The chord's fragment burns against her skin, a tether to something far older than even the gods. The priests whisper of in hushed, reverent tones. From the mist, shapes emerge, hollow-eyed things that were once men, their skin seared with sigils that bleed shadow. The first of the hollow ones. The heralds of the forgotten pantheon. Lysandra does not flinch. She raises her blade. "Let them come." Chapter 8, The Banquet of Ashes. The Black Mire feasts tonight. The hollow ones descend upon the temple like living nightmares, their fingers elongated into obsidian claws, their mouths unhinging wider than human jaws should allow. The exiled priests scatter, their prayers dissolving into screams. The temple walls tremble as the past forces its way back into reality. Lysandra moves through the carnage like a specter, her blade singing a hymn of severed flesh and spilling ichor. She carves through the hollow ones with an elegance that borders on worship. This is not war. This is ascension. From the heart of the temple, the high priest staggers forward, clutching a dagger of woven light. His lips shape words of power, his blood painting sigils across his chest. "We must close the veil," he cries. "Before they break through." Lysandra's laughter is a cold wind. "Why would I close the door," she murmurs, stepping over a dying priest, "when I am the one who opened it?" The priest's scream is lost in the wail of something immense pushing through the thinning fabric of existence. Chapter 9, The Maw of the Forgotten. Reality fractures. A rift yawns open above the Black Mire, a wound in the fabric of the world. Through it, eyes the size of moons blink into existence, watching, waiting. The hollow ones kneel, their bodies breaking apart into drifting motes of shadow, offered as tribute to something beyond comprehension. Lysandra stands before the abyss, unflinching. The golden mask conceals the exhilaration twisting her lips. The chord's fragment hums, harmonizing with the distant, cosmic pulse of something awakening. From the depths of the rift, a hand emerges. Not flesh. Not bone. Something older. Something endless. Evangeline screams her name, but the words are lost in the howl of collapsing reality. The mire recoils, the waters turning black, thick as tar. The air trembles. Lysandra steps forward, reaching out. She does not hesitate. Chapter 10, The Queen of Nothing. The Black Mire is silent. The rift is gone. The hollow ones have vanished, their existence erased like ink washed from the pages of time. The temple stands in ruin, its walls blackened, its altars shattered. And at the center of it all, Lysandra Voss kneels in the shallow water, the golden mask cracked, the chord's fragment burned into her palm. Evangeline stands over her, breathing heavily, her blade slick with something that should not be. You, she chokes out. You almost. Lysandra rises, the remnants of the golden mask crumbling from her face. Her skin is pallid, her eyes burning void black. The air around her warps, bending towards her like a gravitational pull. I am no longer almost, she says softly, her voice not entirely her own. I am. The mire bends to her will. The trees groan. The waters shudder. Lysandra Voss is no longer heir to Draven. No longer a survivor of the Syndicate's shattered dream. No longer just another seeker of power. She has become something else entirely. The first of the forgotten gods. And the cycle begins anew. Epilogue, The Crown of Dusk. The Black Mire no longer whispers. It sings. Mist coils in reverence, rising from the water like spectral hands reaching toward the figure standing atop the drowned ruins of Ilmaris. The sky, once fractured, now stretches in an endless twilight, a horizon without dawn, without end. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth, of rot and rebirth. Lysandra Voss stands alone, her golden mask forgotten in the muck, her face sculpted from something more than flesh. The chord's fragment no longer hums, it has become silent, absorbed into her being. The mire bends to her breath, the trees leaning when she exhales, the water stirring when she moves. Evangeline watches from the edge of the ruins, her flame diminished, her purpose unraveling like an old thread. The woman before her is not the Lysandra she once knew. No heir to the Syndicate. No queen of fallen men. She is something else, something unspoken. A god, perhaps. A mistake, perhaps. Evangeline does not speak. She only listens. Lysandra raises her hand, fingers tracing unseen patterns in the air. The sky quivers. Somewhere, beyond the mire, a city crumbles. Somewhere, beyond time, the echoes of the old gods howl in grief, in anger, in terror. She has stolen their cycle. She has become the cycle. The first raindrops fall, black as ink, thick as blood. The Black Mire sings louder. And Lysandra Voss, Lady of the Forgotten, closes her eyes and listens.